Back in 2009, long before the crypto boom, NFTs, or Elon Musk's stock-shifting tweets, a small, forgotten fishing town in Somalia called Harar decided it was time for an economic upgrade. Located about 250 miles northeast of Mogadishu, opportunities for making a decent living were scarce. With the Somalian government too busy dealing with Islamist extremists, the locals came to a collective realization. Their number one export was piracy, and it was time to cash in. So how do you survive in a place like Harar where the choices are militancy, poverty, or petty crime? You join a private gang and turn to piracy, of course. But this wasn't just about snatching ships and hoping for the best. The locals got organized and created the world's first pirate stock exchange. Think of it as the ultimate entrepreneurial move, where everyone from fishermen to investors could buy into a pirate mission and make a killing, literally and figuratively. Now, rebel groups have become very resourceful when it comes to funding their activities. They don't just rely on donations from sympathizers, they've gotten creative, tapping into resource exploitation, illegal trade, and even piracy. Some groups steal oil and rare earth elements, selling them on black markets. Others focus on drug sales and transportation. And then there's kidnapping, which is all too common. It's not unusual for journalists, government officials, and wealthy Westerners to get caught up in these schemes, with the rebels demanding hefty ransoms in exchange for their freedom. But let's talk about one of the more unique ways rebels make money: Somali pirates. You've probably heard of them from headlines over the last couple of decades, but there's an interesting twist to their story that not many people know about. Yes, you think right. They opened a pirate stock exchange in Harar. Back in 2011, the Wall Street Journal reported that around 70 maritime piracy operations were listed on this exchange. Somalia's coastline sits near the Gulf of Aden, a prime location for piracy since ships passing between Europe and Asia via the Suez Canal have to navigate these waters. Spotting this lucrative opportunity, Somali pirates began offering up shares in their piracy missions. Investors could buy in with cash, boats, fuel, or even weapons. In return, they would get a slice of the profits if the mission succeeded. The pirates would capture a ship and its crew, demand ransom, sometimes as high as $4 million per mission, and when the cash rolled in, it would be split among the investors. One woman reportedly bought a rocket-propelled grenade, RPG-7, for $500 and ended up earning a $75,000 return on her investment, a mind-blowing 150 times what she had put in. Investors in Harar became overnight millionaires, with flashy cars and displays of wealth becoming common in the town. This system highlights just how business-savvy even criminal operations can be. But piracy, especially in Somalia, has since declined due to increased international naval patrols and tighter security on shipping vessels. Still, it remains a prime example of how rebel groups or loosely organized factions can think outside the box to sustain their operations. Beyond piracy, another way rebel groups make money is through what you could call taxation. Rather than fighting for control of territory, many prefer to control key infrastructure, roads, bridges, or highways, and charge fees for every vehicle or person passing through. While it might sound old-fashioned, this simple tactic generates billions of dollars each year, keeping rebel operations going. Take the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, as an example. The DRC is incredibly rich in resources. Coltan, vital for electronics, diamonds, cobalt, and copper are all found there in large quantities. But rebel groups in the country have found that controlling roads is far more profitable than battling over raw materials. In the provinces of North and South Kivu, there are over 800 roadblocks. These checkpoints rake in around $50 million a year, with rebels charging for the safe passage of goods and people. Why fight for mines when you can set up a toll booth and have a steady stream of income? The situation is similar in Afghanistan. The country's mountainous terrain makes it largely dependent on a single circular highway that connects all its major cities. Rebel groups, including the Taliban, recognized this strategic advantage early on. During the Afghan Civil War, hundreds of roadblocks appeared along this highway. Traders and truckers had no choice but to pay up or face harassment. Ironically, the Taliban originally gained support in the 1990s by promising to dismantle these illegal checkpoints. They won over Afghan traders and truckers who had grown tired of the constant extortion. However, after seizing power, the Taliban realized how valuable these checkpoints could be and started setting up their own. Today, it's estimated that there are around 10,000 checkpoints across Afghanistan, with one key highway from Herat to Kabul alone generating an eye-popping $200,000 a day for the Taliban. Meanwhile, in Iraq, rebel groups have become so organized with their checkpoint system that they've even started leasing the rights to operate them from the government. So, in some cases, these rebel groups are not only operating legally, but they're also profiting from the country's infrastructure with official government permission. Somalia once again provides another example of a more sophisticated twist on the checkpoint method. The militant group Al-Shabaab controls significant portions of Somali territory, operating numerous roadblocks across the areas they govern. But here's the twist. When truckers pay taxes at one Al-Shabaab checkpoint, they're given a certificate that grants them safe passage through all other checkpoints controlled by the group. To ensure truckers stick to their routes, Al-Shabaab regularly attacks other roads, making their own routes the safest option by comparison. One of the big misconceptions people have about modern conflict zones is that rebel groups want to control vast amounts of land. In reality, most of them are more focused on controlling key infrastructure, whether that's roads, bridges, or maritime routes, because that's where the money is. Cities or large regions are a logistical headache to maintain and defend. Roads? Much easier. Unfortunately, Western companies and aid organizations trying to operate in conflict zones often add fuel to the fire, sometimes without even realizing it. In many cases, these organizations must pass through rebel-controlled checkpoints to deliver aid or transport goods. To avoid directly dealing with the rebels, many companies hire local logistics firms. These firms charge a flat fee that includes the cost of passing through the checkpoints, meaning Western companies don't need to engage with the rebels directly. However, the money still ends up in the hands of the rebel groups, helping them continue their operations. Let's circle back to Somalia to wrap things up. While the pirate stock exchange is now defunct due to increased global efforts to combat piracy, the methods used by these groups remain a stark reminder of the creativity and adaptability that rebel factions bring to their financial schemes. Whether it's through piracy, checkpoints, or resource exploitation, rebel groups have learned how to squeeze money out of their environments. Investing in a pirate mission may seem far-fetched, but these rebels have shown that conflict can be as much about making a buck as it is about political or ideological battles. Interestingly, some other ways rebel groups fund their operations are worth noting. For example, in Colombia, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC, funded themselves through the cocaine trade, controlling large portions of the drugs production and smuggling routes. In Myanmar, the drug trade, especially methamphetamine production, has long been a key income source for rebel groups. These drugs make their way to markets all over the world, providing rebels with a steady stream of income. Well, that's it for today. From pirate stock exchanges to roadblock taxation, rebel groups have proven time and again that they know how to turn conflict into cash. Whether it's piracy in Somalia or the drug trade in Colombia and Myanmar, these factions have found ways to profit in the most challenging environments. But it begs the question, in a world where conflict zones are often left out of mainstream attention, how far will these groups continue pushing the boundaries of unconventional economics? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the surprising ways rebels fund their operations, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more fascinating stories like this.